And it's time for the most delicious part of the show. We're joined now by Joe, who's gonna cook up something yummy.
One of the Southern classics is, of course, peanut brittle. Now, right off the bat, we can use any nut with this, but the recipe is always gonna be the same.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with clear or light corn syrup. I always like to add that to the pot first, because if you add your sugar, which comes next, if you don't add it on top of the corn syrup, what can happen is it'll pack together and it can burn. Then we'll cook that high or medium, whatever you can actually watch. Okay. Now what we're going for here, we're gonna stir this to combine it, but we wanna make sure that we don't burn the sugar. Okay. If you had a lot going on in your kitchen, feel free to cook this over low or even medium heat. All of this raw sugar being exposed to the heat is a clear recipe for quick cooking. And we'll start adding the melted sugar to the still raw sugar, which will help it melt faster. We'll just come through and gently stir it again to evenly distribute all that temperature. Let it cook for a few moments, and once we get the ideal color we want, we're good to go. If you're gonna make a lot of this, it's smart to write down how long it took you to cook it. That way you have kind of a target to shoot at, if it took 7 minutes, if it took 10 minutes, etc. But what we like to call it is petite amber. That's when it starts to just turn kind of a golden yellow hue. Until we hit petite amber, it can kind of just do its thing at its leisure, but always stirring, distributing that heat. When we're at this stage, right before petite amber, everything is liquid, we have kind of a magma type substance. If you're using raw peanuts, that's the time you would want to add those. If you're using already toasted or dried or any other type of peanut, you'll add those right before you pour it at the very end. The corn syrup will of course keep this from crystallizing. If you're very averse to corn syrup, you can definitely use agave nectar or honey. So with our raw peanuts, we'll go ahead and add those.
It's a lot of peanuts.
It is a lot of peanuts. I believe that if you want peanut brittle, you're gonna want a lot of peanuts in there. So we're gonna toss our peanuts to coat them. You'll see everything will start toasting together pretty quickly. If you're using hazelnuts, those will cook very quickly. If you're using pistachios, those will go a little slower. But you can see I already have caramel developing on the bottom. If you get it on your hand, just be very careful. It is hot. Once we have even color and we have all the nuts coated, we can go ahead and add our butter to it. Butter is gonna help that sugar coat the nuts evenly, and it'll help give us that delicious flavor. If you don't want to use butter, you can use any kind of fat that's similar. If you wanted to add salt, you certainly could. Salt is always to taste. And again, that's where taking notes about how much you added and how long it took would be a great idea. So we're getting pretty close now. We're getting a good color. Now there is absolutely no substitution for baking soda in this recipe. Okay. If you don't have baking soda, just don't even start it. When it gets this hot moisture from all of the nuts and the butter, it'll start to foam. And that foaming is what gives us a chewy candy versus a very sticky candy. Now, I'm happy with the color. Right now I'm just still stirring to make sure that the heat is evenly distributed. I've already removed it from the heat. We've turned the heat off. The pot is plenty hot enough to finish cooking it. Then we'll come in here, we'll add our baking soda, and this is where we stir, and you'll see it'll start to foam up a little bit around the nuts. When we're stirring, we want to make sure we get that beautiful thick caramel going on, and you can see we have gorgeous color. We're very happy with the texture. I can just pour it straight out. Make sure that your surface can absorb that kind of heat. So once it's here, the best thing to do is actually to level it out. So I'm gonna ask Kandace to use the rolling pin here, or you can just use your hand, but it is very hot, so be careful. And just roll it out to the thickness that we want it. As it's cooling, if you wanted it to be extra shiny, you need to start pulling it by hand. And then of course you can make as big or small a batch as you have space to control. And you see with the silicone mat, it just pulls away very cleanly. So we can just set that aside, let it cool completely. Or, like I said, if we wanted to, we can come in here as it's cooling and we can start to stretch the sugar a little bit, and it will get shinier and shinier as it goes, more glossy. And you can season it any way you want once it's poured.
Great, well thanks Joe, I can't wait to taste it. To get this full recipe and many more, be sure to visit our website, todaywithkandace.com. And if you'd like to learn more about Joe and his culinary creations, check out joethebaker.com. Thanks for watching this video. For more great content, contests, and giveaways, be sure to follow us on Twitter.